Hi, it's Bob Oopsher, and this is the Gaining Perspective podcast where we bring you insightful conversations with some of the top thought leaders in the investment advisor profession and investment management industry. I am the founder and CEO of Advisor Perspectives. Among financial advisors, 57% have reported spending a significant portion of their time discussing non financial topics with clients. To retain clients, advisors need to provide a more connected and emotional financial experience to help them achieve and sustain financial freedom. The role of an advisor is changing, and advisors should use technology for the more technical aspects of the job in order to focus on the emotional human to human connections. And as advisors' roles evolve, they face an ongoing challenge of capacity and scale. To respond, they must be intentional about how they use their time, where they invest, and the new skills they develop. My guest today will delve into this topic and we'll discuss why it requires the right infrastructure to maintain capacity and how advisors can use specialization, partnership, technology, and operations to gain capacity and grow. Gabriel Garcia is a managing director of RIA Client Experience and Business Development and Strategy at SEI. He leads the client experience, business development, and strategy efforts focused on RIAs for SEI's independent advisor business. His 30-year career reflects a focus on helping RIAs develop and grow their practices into enduring firms and on designing technology solutions that meet the needs of an evolving RIA community. Shauna Mace is head of practice management at SEI, and she leads and develops programs that focus on helping independent advisors grow their businesses, create efficiencies in their operations, and differentiate their practices. And Shauna joined SEI last year, 2021, after more than 16 years working with advisors, asset managers, and financial service businesses. So, Gabe and Shauna, since each of you are relatively new to SEI, I know that you're both well known through the advisory profession, but tell us a little bit more about your career paths and what led you to SEI. Shauna, I'll start with you.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks for having us on. So it's interesting. I know we're talking about capacity, and that's one of the large drivers of what led me to SEI. But throughout my career, I've always focused on working with individuals and businesses and helping them succeed and grow. And that started the first 8 years, the first half of my career at an RIA firm outside of Philadelphia. I really got to understand and appreciate the work that financial advisors do and the impact they can have and the complexity of running a small business. I ended up transitioning to an asset management firm, a very large, fast growing asset management firm, and learned a lot about what are best practices around growth. How do you market? How do you sell? How do you build process and technology to support that drive, that continuous sustained growth over time? And I decided to throw my hat in the ring and try entrepreneurship for myself and launched a consulting and coaching business to help advisors grow. At the very beginning of the pandemic, so April 1st of 2020, I launched my consulting company, Inspired Growth, and it was an absolute blast helping advisors grow and figuring out how to grow myself. And really, I got to a point where I got to capacity myself and had to make some tough decisions. And the opportunity at SEI kind of fell right in my lap. And what I found was a great group of people. I believe in the work that SEI does in helping support the advisor community and advisor gaining scale and capacity in their business. And it was just a great opportunity for me to pivot and continue to do the work I love, with the resources and support, and also with the ability to have a larger impact.
Well, I know when you were a consultant, I was able to speak with you and bounce some ideas off of you, and you gave us some valuable feedback about what eventually became our membership service. Gabe, how about you?
Similar to Shauna's comments, thank you, Bob, for having us today. And I'll try to maybe share a couple distinct thoughts, but agree completely with the energy and the enthusiasm and the leadership that exists here at SEI. And as I, have gone down my path in my journey, I've had the privilege and the honor to work at various, quite frankly, wonderful, tremendous organizations across the RIA landscape, work inside of a fantastic multifamily office RIA business, heading up mergers and acquisitions. And the combination of those experiences really brought me to, the doors here at SEI. as they were looking to really establish SEI as a premier destination for RIA in the marketplace for technology and custody. We have been, quite frankly, the best kept secret in the marketplace. And the enthusiasm, the commitment, the culture, the focus on the client experience, building communities, empowering wealth really spoke to me. And the opportunity to lead those efforts and collaborate with partners such as Shauna and others in the organization to provide an alternative choice to organizations as they continue to evolve and grow in the marketplace and look for scale, capacity, and efficiency, the topics that we're going to be discussing here today.
And you and I have met. I've heard you speak at Bob Veris's conference, and you certainly bring a wealth of experience to the position that you're in. Gabe, I'm going to start with you. SEI's advisor business has been always focused on accelerating growth in the RIA market. Tell me more about the current landscape that you're seeing among RIAs. What are the challenges they're facing, and what are the growth opportunities that you see?
Yeah, great question. Great question. The challenges are kind of like the old proverbial quote: "You never quite get to the end of the internet." Being an entrepreneur and a business owner in growth-oriented businesses, there's always something next on the to-do list. But historically, over the last couple of decades, as the industry has evolved, there's been three prominent challenges and various flavors of that in prioritization, and they all tend to center around talent, growth, and technology. When advisors are surveyed, those are always at the top of the list, and they come in various forms of components within those. So those challenges persist here today. Growth, certainly in 2022, from a revenue perspective, is challenged. Albeit firms are still growing organically with new relationships. The headwinds of market volatility certainly have created an impediment to top line revenue growth. But firms are still healthy and growing in that fundamental aspect. But the reality is that there's a challenge there. 50% of AUM growth in 2021 was market driven. Only a third of growth was from new clients, and 2/3 of those came from referrals, which is how this industry was built, through relationships and trust and referrals and introductions from clients and centers of influence. The challenge I pose to those that we work with regularly is, how do you think about growth in the future? If the typical advisor within an organization is bringing in 6 to 9 new clients a year, that's less than one new client a month. What would it take to double that? And that's not a huge ask to go from less than one to maybe 1.5 to two. And what would be the implications for your organization long term, knowing that the typical client is a client for 15 to 17 years? So that's one challenge where I think firms really need to rethink about how they complement or supplement their referral growth with more marketing and business development efforts. The other is really the proliferation of services. The typical firm today is offering between 8 and 10 distinct services to their clients. And what does that mean from a productivity and client experience and capacity perspective? And how do you think about your optimal client, not rationing service, but rationalizing service that is appropriate and meeting their expectations in a manner that is congruent with your business vision and philosophy? So I think capacity in services, capacity for growth are big challenges here in 2022.
It's interesting when you talk about talent growth and technology as being the biggest issues that uh, advisors are facing. I see the same issues in our business in terms of what is key to our success. Uh, Shauna, the best financial advisors are coaching clients through their most important life moments. What are some of the best practices that you're seeing advisors use to facilitate those meaningful relationships with their clients?
I mean, really, it comes down to some basic coaching skills. It starts with acknowledging the fact that a lot of people are feeling stressed and anxious. It's been a difficult past 3 years. It continues to be difficult. There continues to be a lot of uncertainty in our lives, in the markets, in the world around us. And so simply acknowledging that that's the case, and we know research tells us that's also the case, that uh, the majority of people, of investors, are feeling a heightened sense of anxiety and stress. So acknowledging it's one. Best practices around how do you act as a coach and a guide, and how do you help your clients kind of understand what that means to them and what that means to their long-term financial success. One thing is by not stopping at that first question of, how are you doing? Don't stop at the first answer you get. Whatever they tell you as you have your client conversation, a client meeting, or a phone call, whatever they tell you, how you doing? How's it going? Oh, it's fine. Well, tell me a little bit more. Ask a second question, ask a follow-up question. Most people will share if they don't share right out of the gates. If you ask that second question, that follow-up question, they may share. It's really about helping connect with them, helping them understand that you're on their side. It doesn't need to be just about their finances, understanding and them understanding that you want to connect with them as a human being. So asking that second follow-up question, a deeper level of listening, it's something that I learned when I was doing coaching training, and I've done continue to do coaching training. We tend to go into conversations with an agenda. It's really important at the beginning of a conversation when you're looking to connect to drop that agenda. If you can listen without an agenda, use your watch and feel the energy, watch and see body language and lean into that. What's going on? Is everything okay? Trust your instincts there. That can really help open up that conversation. And when someone does share something, maybe where they acknowledge that they're feeling stressed or they're feeling anxious or life is busy or it's tough or whatever's going on, acknowledging that, hey, thank you for sharing that. You don't have to have all the answers, but them knowing that you're a trusted partner and that you care about them is really important. We know from our investor research that the overall relationship is the number one driver of satisfaction or dissatisfaction, followed by trustworthiness, your client's feeling of trustworthiness and your transparency, and then third is investment performance. So that relationship really matters, and using some basic coaching skills can help you connect more deeply and help them open up more honestly about what's going on.
You mentioned stress and anxiety at the beginning of your comments there, and I've seen data that suggests that more than three-quarters of Americans are anxious about their financial situation. How can advisors ease that anxiety in addition to some of the things that you've mentioned there about having the right kind of conversation starters?
It's not about just what you do. So Gabe talked about increased expectations around services. It's really around how you do it. So taking in data points about things that matter, capturing the feedback from your clients in your CRM, following up consistently. So we found in some referral research that we did that those firms that have a consistent plan or process around communication to their clients, and they're doing it in a more personalized way. They're asking, how do you want to be contacted, or how do you want to have your meeting, in person or virtually? What times work for you? What topics are top of mind? As you're gathering that information, as you're communicating, be more personalized. Um, Help them understand that you really do care. And again, asking the question, it might even be as simple as asking the question. We know that a number of our clients have a heightened sense of anxiety around their financial success. How are you feeling about that? That's one way. Another interesting way that I've heard recently and I've seen be successful is to give your client some time before your client review meeting by sending out, you could send out a templated email, or could be part of your Calendly scheduling or your scheduling system, to ask some questions around what are the topics that are keeping you up at night, or what are the things that you want to make sure we cover in our meeting? Is there anything that's causing worry or anxiety, financial or non financial? Asking those questions before the meeting can help inform the agenda for the meeting, and it gives them a little bit of time to not be put on the spot to think about what those things are. It's also something you can send to each member of a household. So you can make sure that you're hearing from both. If it is a couple, you're hearing from both people, because they may be having a different experience themselves.
Gabe, you and I have been in this profession for a while. Decades ago, financial advice was about recommending investment products. Now we see investment performance is like number three among the drivers of client satisfaction. How did that evolve over time, and what new responsibilities do advisors hold?
Yeah, well, it has been a very interesting evolution over the last few decades. The RIA community as we know it today really came into prevalence in the mid 90s, although from a regulatory perspective, the 40 Act is what creates the fiduciary business model that registered investment advisors operate under. And this transition from commission and product orientation and professional seller to a professional buyer who operates as a fiduciary on the same side of the table with the client and is paid a fee for their services and not from the product really was the genesis of moving from an investment orientation to a planning orientation now to a client experience orientation that Shauna was just speaking about. How do you hold conversations and engage clients to, quite frankly, deal with you know the emotions and the stress and the anxiety and the excitement and enthusiasm and jubilation that comes along with it as well when you have success and achieve goals. So that transition, as I mentioned before, has created an expansion of services and capabilities offered to clients that touch all of those elements: investments, planning, client experience, whether that's major purchases or uh, managing the debit side of the balance sheet with lending solutions, or talking about life, health, and disability needs, caring for elderly parents, college planning, cash flow management, financial literacy for younger generations. It has become a very prominent and important role for the clients that advisors serve and the families and the goals that they're trying to achieve. And it really has been sort of an incremental progression driven by a relationship trust based approach and the needs and the expectations of the clients that they serve. So it hasn't been sort of a solution looking for a problem type of dynamic. It has really been a collaborative effort driven by both parties in that relationship. And it's a very welcome outcome, I believe, in the marketplace. If we look at any sort of business metrics that would support the decision making and the asset growth in the profession that we all support.
Let's pause for a couple of minutes for a word from our sponsor. I know that you already enjoy our content from Advisor Perspectives every day, so why not use our award-winning articles, commentaries, and charts to streamline your communications with clients and prospects? My team and I introduced AP Premium last summer, and we've been blown away by the response from the advisor community. Keep listening for an exclusive code to get $10 off our premium service. You won't find the in-depth, sophisticated market analysis and charts like Advisor Perspectives anywhere else. This information can be invaluable to help your clients understand complex topics. Let's say a client asks a question about their estate plan. Instead of spending time researching and drafting a long-winded response, quickly grab any number of related articles from our library and share it in a personalized way. AP Premium gives you the power to add your logo and a personalized message to any piece of content and share it directly with your clients and prospects. We also introduced a premium offering called the Ask an Expert webinar series. At our inaugural session, we were joined by Wade Pfau for an intimate Q&A. Advisors have told me this is one of their favorite perks of being a premium member, and we can't wait to share who's slated to join us next. Give Premium a try and see for yourself why it pays to be a premium member. As always, we appreciate your support of our efforts to bring excellence to financial journalism. And as a thank you, I'm offering a one-time $10 discount for new premium members to be taken off your first monthly or annual payment. Just go to advisorperspectives.com/member. That's advisorperspectives.com/member and use the code podcast 2022. That's podcast 2022, all caps, at checkout. And now back to our podcast. Shauna, given this background that we've been talking about that places an emphasis on collaboration, as Gabe just mentioned, on the human to human and emotional side, as you were discussing earlier, how should advisors market themselves, particularly now where volatility is higher than it's been in the past year or two?
Yeah, and I want to just acknowledge too that all the things we've been talking about do put capacity pressure on advisory firms. And so I know there's only so much time in the day, and it's one of those things we hear all the time. It's just there's not enough time in the day to do all of this, to have these deep conversations, to be personalized, to build out my tech stack, to do marketing well. And so what we see is the need to continue to have to lean on some drivers of scale in order to have the capacity to do the marketing work or to lean on partnerships. So that's something we talk about a lot. The drivers of scale and growth, as we see it, the greatest opportunities of firms that are doing this well and navigating kind of the evolution of their advisory business and maintaining capacity and scale are leaning into specialization, and that impacts your marketing. So being clear about who your ideal client is, who do you ideally want to grow with? And if you are going to invest in marketing, which we highly recommend beyond just referrals, who are you marketing to? Be discreet. Retirees are not a niche. Women are not a niche. We got to be more specific. The more specific, the more that your ideal audience can identify and say, "Oh yeah, that's me. They work with people like me." Versus, "Oh, they maybe work with people like me and maybe a few other groups. I'm not sure." If you're going to invest marketing dollars, make sure that you understand what your goals are, who you ideally want to grow with, and we would highly recommend focusing, having some specialized target audience, and lean into your strengths and the best opportunities marketing. So, for example, that might look like if you're not a great writer, well, don't lean into content marketing. Or if you do decide that's the best avenue, leverage a partner. So partnership is that second lever of scale and growth that we highly recommend. SEI is an example of a partner for a number of advisors, as a custodial partner, a technology partner, as an outsourced investment partner. But there's wonderful marketing firms out there that that's their job. It's an expertise, just like financial planning and investment management is an expertise. If that's not your expertise, it may be worth investing money with a partner to help you execute on your marketing plan to achieve those goals. But understand what you want to actually achieve with marketing. Be clear of what success looks like. It may be really around cultivating referrals, and it may be focusing on your clients. It may be looking to achieve new opportunities, new leads outside of your clients. So be discreet of what is the goal. What do you want to see as far as the number of new leads and potentially even the number of new AUM or revenue that you generate from your marketing efforts or they support? And again, leaning into specialization. Who is that ideal client you want? Who are those leads you want to be meeting with? And that can help inform the strategy and the tactics that you use, whether you do it yourself or you leverage a partner, a marketing partner to help.
And Shauna, I know that you're a good resource, as I'm sure Gabe is, for finding the right partner, whether it's someone to help with marketing or content. So there'll be contact information where advisors can contact you to ask those kinds of questions. Gabe, let's talk some more about technology. What are you seeing now as the key technology tools that advisors can use to navigate some of these changes that you're seeing in the profession?
Well, I'll start off by saying, the old adage, be careful what you ask for, you just might get it. Uh, the advisory profession has benefited over the last couple of decades by an investment from fintechs in providing wonderful client experiences and technologies to drive the outcomes that they're trying to deliver for their clients and families that they serve. That abundance of technological capabilities has also created challenges and inefficiencies. The reality of it is that it's hard to find a unified platform that is integrated and touches all of the elements that are involved in a financial planning wealth management relationship with clients. But the core of that technology stack, whether a firm uses a CRM platform as their core, desktop experience for their staff and their employees, or a financial planning technology, or a portfolio performance reporting technology, those are three core components that I think are essential, and most firms have. The challenge is how do they integrate? How do they speak to each other to optimize efficiencies and productivity and scale in the organization to be able to do the things they do best for their clients and engage in those relationships. There are some new technologies out there from a relationship and engagement component, aggregation capabilities, so firms can provide a holistic view beyond just investments and securities in their reporting, which brings greater insight into uh, you know where people are in their journey in achieving their long-term goals for their families and themselves. So, as advisors are looking to navigate that landscape, what I would say is that sometimes less is more. I find that many firms are underutilizing the capabilities, just as many of us underutilize, in my case, my iPhone. I probably use less than half. I'm probably exaggerating if I say I use half of the capabilities that exist within my phone. And I think that that is a challenge that firms need to think about closely. And are you overpaying for a robust technology that either is not used or not appropriate for the business and the services that you're providing? And how do you refine that to the core technology so that you can maximize the capacity and capability of those technologies, and that your organization, from a people perspective, are leveraging them to their fullest? As you integrate those technologies, the workflows that you connect to those are critically important. And as you know, our good friend Joel Brokenstein said, is if you have an inefficient workflow and you automate it, now you have an automated inefficient workflow. So navigating those technologies, integrating them, and finding the efficiencies within them to operate more effectively is critically important.
Joel is certainly one of the wisest voices around when it comes to technology. Shauna, maybe you can sort of look at what we've talked about here today and tell us about the resources that are available, particularly available from SEI, for helping advisors who are looking to scale their practices.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground, which is interesting because there's so much ground to cover when it comes to these questions. So at SEI, we are really committed to helping advisors, whether they're SEI clients or not, helping them when they're going to work on their business, do it as well as possible. So we created something called the Growth Lab, which is available to all advisors and all professionals within the industry to help them work on the business, not just in their business. It's a collection of practice management toolkits that help advisors take action in certain areas of the business, such as business planning, creating an ideal client persona, articulating their value, scaling with technology and operations, getting more leads from marketing. So, a lot of the topics that we discussed today, we have actionable tools, simple, easy tools, and best practices embedded in them to help advisors start and their teams start to take action right away, wherever that area of greatest opportunity is in their business.
There is a link to that growth lab in the notes that accompany this podcast. Uh, if there's one key takeaway that each of you would like to leave with our audience of advisors about the changes that you're seeing in advisor client relationships and how advisors need to adapt to respond to those changes, what would that be? I'm going to ask each of you that. Gabe, I'll start with you.
Well, that's a very challenging question to respond to, Bob, because there's so many paths that you could go down. But I'll leave you with this thought, which is, we talk about a business that was built by boomers for boomers and the demographic changes with respect to the client base that advisors are serving today. And how do you address those? And I think taking some time and stepping back and thinking about this question and the implications um, would be beneficial. How old will your clients that you are serving today be in 10 years? And what will that relationship look like? And in 10 years, what will new clients coming in the front door of your organization look like? And what will their desires and experiences need to be? And I think as you pause and consider, the answers for yourself to those questions, it will illuminate, how you begin to evolve your organization, the services, the capabilities, and create the capacity to address what will be two, potentially three very distinct client demographics and life stages in an organization that most firms who are, probably 20 to 25 years old, typically since they were established, really haven't had to endure in their lifespan.
And Shauna, what about you?
Well, that was a great answer, Gabe. And I'm going to piggyback on that. So, Gabe is challenging everyone to look forward and build towards the future firm that you want to become and the future clients that you're going to serve. What I would say is, what about to just take a look at today and understand how are we doing today? And from two perspectives. One, from your firm perspective, how are we doing? We have a tool in the Growth Lab to help with this. It takes 2 minutes. It's called a business audit, and it helps you start to, to articulate to yourself and your team what are those areas in the business how are we doing today versus where we want to be. Understand how you're doing the business using metrics, all that good stuff, qualitative data such as the business audit, but also make sure you're getting some feedback from your clients on how you're doing. Because I think the assumption is, and we see this in data as well, that there's a data point: 73% of advisors say that they're differentiating themselves through client service. It's statistically impossible. So how are you actually doing today? You can do that through a survey, you can do through a client survey, you can do that through even just qualitative questions such as, what was the value that you found in us when you were looking for an advisor? What about now? Are there things that you would expect or you would want maybe in the future as your situation evolves? How's it been going? Even use that rating system like we have in the business audit. How are we doing across these specific service areas? Tell us how you're doing. Instead of out of 0 to 5, what would a 5 look like? Maybe they give you a 4. What would a 5 look like? So using some open-ended questions to get feedback, but understanding where you are and where those greatest opportunities are to work to gain capacity and maintain scale can be helpful to make that transition as you become who you want to become in the future.
Well, we're going to include some links in the notes that accompany this podcast. There'll be a link where you can just learn more about SEI's advisor business, but there'll also be a link to the Growth Lab where you can take that survey, that audit that Shauna just mentioned. There'll be links to an operations and a technology toolkit. Gabe and Shauna, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Bob, I just would like to say thank you very much for the opportunity for allowing Shauna and myself to participate, share some of our perspectives, and represent SEI. And if we can be of service in any way to yourself or any of your listeners, please reach out to us. Visit the links that you're providing. There's some great tools there that touch on the topics we spoke about today. And thank you very much, Shauna.
Thank you so much, Bob. We really appreciate the opportunity.
You're welcome, and thank you for listening to the Gaining Perspective podcast with Bob Hoopsher, today featuring Gabe Garcia and Shauna Mace of SEI. To support our podcast, please share, subscribe, or leave a review to help make our podcast more findable for your friends and colleagues. You can subscribe to Gaining Perspective on iTunes, Spotify, and Stitcher.